I want to give you my top 10 power ratings for week 10. After week nine's results, there have been some shifts in my top 10, and this top 10, the criteria is mostly based on the eye test, power ratings that I see and read and scrape and sift through, and a little bit of strength of schedule and strength of record baked in, of course, because if you look wonderful on the eye test, but you haven't played anybody, someone who doesn't look as good on the eye test but has played a much tougher strength of schedule probably will look better on the eye test than the team who is just blowing through their schedule that's as strong as a pile of leaves. Before I continue, liking the video, watching the video all the way through, and commenting your thoughts down below are the best ways to support the channel, as they help push me into the algorithm, help me to receive a larger paycheck that I can use to reinvest in producing elite analysis for you all. Subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell, sharing the video around, and supporting us in other ways that you can find out via the description are other awesome ways to support our operation at College Football with Sam. We are becoming the best. We want to be the best. Thank you all for making that possible. If that team that has the tougher schedule had to play the weaker one, they'd look better than the team that has to play the weaker one. Hopefully that makes sense. I think that is pretty clear. So let's start off with number 10, that being Miami. Miami is an interesting case study for me because they have looked sloppier on offense as time has gone on. I love their offensive line. I think Carson Beck, when he is good, is great. When he is bad, he's terrible. And their wide receiver core isn't as good as it was last year. There is a noticeable drop-off from last season's Miami offense to this one, and a noticeable difference in style of play. The defense is dramatically improved. I believe this Miami team is better than last year's Miami team. Not by a ton, but by a little, sure. The Stanford game did not encourage me. They kind of ran up the score late after physically pounding Stanford. It was not an encouraging game. And Louisville's a good team, but Louisville is not they're a team that won't win more than one game at best in the college football playoff, depending on their seeding and the side of the bracket they're put on and the games that they have to play, the series of games. So that was not a good loss for Miami. They only lost by 3 despite the massive turnover differential that was in Louisville's favor. So they're one of the best teams in America. They have a higher ceiling than what they're showing right now, but their floor is also lower. And games at SMU and at Pittsburgh are going to be tough. They cannot afford to lose another game, and they keep dropping in my ratings. Number 9 is Texas Tech at 7-1. They destroy the bad teams and the mediocre teams regardless of who starts at quarterback, whether it is Brycen Moore, Will Hammond, who's going to miss the rest of the season, or Mitch Griffiths, who transferred in from Wake Forest after starting there, I think, a year or maybe 2. Doesn't matter. They just murder their opponents left and right. The bad ones, the mediocre ones. Arizona State is a good team that I know they just lost to Houston, but Houston's well coached. They have some players too. So I think they're the class of the Big 12. I still, as of right now, would favor them to win the Big 12, but it all depends on a variety of things. Arizona State is probably eliminated from that picture with the loss to Houston, so you don't have to worry about that tiebreaker, but BYU's undefeated. They're coming to your place in a bit. You have to beat them. And Cincinnati, they're also undefeated. Utah has 2 losses, but with how their schedule works out, they're the 2-loss team with the best chance of getting in because their combined opponent wins and losses in Big 12 play, the win percentage of that is just so high, and that's a tiebreaker. So they have to figure out offense. They have to figure out quarterback. They have to get healthy there. But that defense, it's up there with Indiana and Ohio State's, which those are the top 3 defenses right now in America per ESPN's efficiency. That D-line with David Bailey, with Lee Hunter, with Romello Height, with Rodriguez behind them at linebacker, that is an electric defense that will keep them in every game, and it will help them blow out opponents that they are able to get on top of if their offense is correctly in place and in sync. Number 8's USC. I don't exactly know how to feel about this one. I am of the opinion that USC, when healthy, is a top 10 team. The power ratings reflect that. The adjusted EPA per play affects that, or shows that, but also affects my opinion. At the same time, however, they do not have the depth that any team on this list does. Texas Tech is deeper. Miami is deeper. Everyone ahead of USC is deeper. Their starters, especially on offense, are phenomenal. And they have some phenomenal starters on defense too. And I do think Lincoln Riley, when he's not overthinking things, is a impressive coach. They could win out. We'll see what they do against Nebraska this Saturday. And they have a trip to Oregon later in the year. Before that, they have to host Iowa at home. That is going to be a tough stretch. They can get through it unscathed, though. And because they simply have the potential to do that, I think they are deserving of a top 10 rating. If you disagree with that, totally fine, but I'm putting them up here. Number 7's Notre Dame. Notre Dame with 2 losses. Well, it's the same with USC. They beat USC head-to-head, and neutral field would have beaten them as well. So I have them ahead of the Trojans, have them ahead of the Hurricanes, who beat them, but that was early in the year with a lot of travel that Notre Dame had to do to get down to Miami, and a climate change that affected them in a negative way. And you saw that as the game went on. Notre Dame is physical. They are quick at running back. They're quick on offense, really. The only thing that prevents me from rating them higher is defensively, I still do not trust them. I know that some people disagree, and they showed some improvements against USC. But keep in mind, USC had to travel across America. Notre Dame was up for that game, and USC was down their starting center and their top 2 running backs. I underestimated how much of an effect that could have on the USC run game. Notre Dame's pass defense will not survive in the playoffs against your top contenders. So Indiana, especially Ohio State, Oregon with Evan Stewart back, Alabama with those receivers, they would, I think, reliably tear up that secondary. And most of those teams have enough on defense, even Alabama, because Notre Dame's quarterback isn't all that mobile, to limit what Notre Dame wants to do offensively. So I think Notre Dame is one of the best teams in America. They could be a title contender. I think they're close. They're in that next tier below my top 3, top 4 that I think are your obvious title contenders. Well, really top 5 or even top 6. But there are some things they need to work on. 6th, speaking of which, is Georgia. Georgia stands at 6-1. Love what they do on offense. Defensively, they're just a mess overall. They are incapable of getting a pass rush. They struggle in coverage. This is Kirby Smart's worst defense since his 2016 team, his first year at Georgia. This is also a much improved Georgia offense from where it was last year. Gunnar Stockton is, I think, 2nd in America in QBR. His receivers, Zachariah Branch, Dylan Bell, they have upgraded. London Humphreys is involved. Their tight ends are better. Their running back room is deeper and better. Their offensive line, led by center Drew Bobo, has been impressive this year. More consistent, more cohesive than last year's unit. Much like Notre Dame, if they can figure out defense, they will be in that next tier. But we've seen 7 games of both of those teams, and while Notre Dame's made strides and Georgia's had some games where in the second half they're locked down, they have nowhere near the defense that all the teams in front of them, outside of maybe one of them, and that's A&M, do. But A&M, they're undefeated. They beat Notre Dame on the road when Notre Dame came off of a bye, and if not for a blocked punt, which was probably the most flukish play of the game, A&M may have won that game by 2 possessions. I don't know. Very back and forth. A&M won the coaching battle. They won the plays, the plays that could have gone either way. That's including the blocked punt, too, that went against them. And look what they did to LSU. I know LSU's offense doesn't have a whole lot of juice to it, but they abused that LSU defense. And if not for 2 turnovers, instead of the final score being 49-25, maybe it could have been 56-18 or 56-16 if not for that safety. A&M made plenty of mistakes in that first half, and they still pulled away, and they got Brian Kelly fired. This is one of the best teams in America. They could be the best team in the SEC. I have people in my corner that I trust who view this team as equal with Alabama and Ohio State as teams that can win the title, or even Indiana, as Indiana's really jumped up in power ratings in the month of October, and even this past week because they had an impressive performance. I love Colin Klein, Mike Elko, Marcel Reed's taken a step forward in his game. Cassius Howell has 10 sacks this season. This unit's dangerous. There's a really good chance that they could be one of those teams, along with likely Indiana and Ohio State, that could finish the regular season undefeated. Number 4 is Oregon. Oregon, it's difficult. They are no longer in my unanimous tier 1 of teams that I am confident can win it all. They were last week, along with Alabama, Indiana, and Ohio State. They've dropped a little bit. So instead of being in tier 1, they're in tier 1B, where I would put A&M as well. And then those other 3 teams that we'll talk about in a few seconds, that's tier 1A. Oregon has issues in pass offense. They do not have the proper amount of weapons to make a young quarterback's life easy. And their offensive line, I think, along with Arkansas and Cincy, is the best in run blocking. They have some issues in pass blocking. Not a lot, and I'm nitpicking there, but the tiny issue that O-line has in pass blocking compounds, I think, some of Dante Moore's weaknesses. Doesn't help. Oregon's defense is way ahead of where it was last year, especially at secondary. They could have the best secondary in America, up there with Alabama and Ohio State for sure. You also have a rushing offense with very young backs, great tight ends, a big offensive line, and also a big defensive line, to where their trench play is up there as, I think, possibly the nation's best. Josh Pate talked about how Miami has a bunch of animals and beasts on their roster in the trenches. Well, Oregon's the exact same there, except I think they're more talented in the backfield offensively and defensively and at the perimeter skill positions. Number 3 is Alabama, 7-1, same with Oregon. That loss to FSU looks weirder and weirder the further we get away from it. I'm, at this point, putting it up there with the Ohio State loss to Michigan last year, where it's flukish, and you have to take it into consideration. So that loss, much like the Ohio State loss to Michigan, basically eliminates those teams from being the greatest of all time caliber teams, but that's all it does. It doesn't stop them from doing anything else this year. All losses like that do is cap how a team is viewed in comparison with teams from other seasons that also won a title. It does not stop them from winning a title. Alabama, ever since that game, has taken steps forward defensively, offensively. I bumped them down from 1 to 3 because Ohio State had a bye. I'm not going to penalize them for that. Indiana looked ridiculously good against UCLA at home. And Alabama, they really could have lost that game to South Carolina. It wasn't just a sleepy performance where you're ahead for the whole game and you could lose, but the feeling is that you're somewhat in control. At one point, Alabama was out of control in the fourth quarter, and due to the clutchness of DeBoer and who they are as a team and a staff, they were able to come back and win. So just for now, have them down at 3. I do think there's a chance they could pass one of Indiana or Ohio State by the end of the year. Indiana's at 2nd, and if they continue to perform how they have in week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because week 1 was a bit of a slower game, they will eventually be number 1. Indiana, out of all the teams on this list, outside of maybe Texas Tech, is held back the most by priors. And every single week, they show that the priors are less and less valuable. Doesn't mean that some of their talent limitations can't come through and hurt them. There is a good chance of that. But they've stayed healthier than they were last year. And in that game against UCLA where Aiden Fisher got hurt, they kept him out to be safe. Their backup, Isaiah Jones, came in. Him and Elijah Hardy made it look like Aiden Fisher was still on the field. They're deeper than they were last year. So the talent thing matters. That's definitely baked in to their power ratings. It's why S&P Plus and FPI are very close to unanimously having Indiana over Ohio State, but the sports books are not. There's clearly Ohio State and then the next 2 or 3 teams. The talent is baked in, but even the sports books have put Indiana as the second most likely team to win it all. They're the fastest riser. So if everything we've seen through 2 months of college football continues, Indiana will be number 1. But as of right now, I have to put Ohio State at 1. They have the best combination of wins on the field, of talent, of consistency, and current power rating. So I'm putting them at number 1. Right now, Ohio State's the best team in the country, and they just have, in the way that Oregon and Miami have insane athletes in the trenches, Ohio State has 1, 2 in Cade McDonald, but not as many in the trenches as Oregon and Miami do. They have aliens almost everywhere in the backfield and in skill position play, and Julian Sain's a stud. So I have Ohio State at 1 right now. They deserve to be the current favorites to win the national championship. I would pick them to beat anyone right now, neutral field. Depending on certain circumstances and matchups, I could pick them to lose to a team here or a team there. But neutral field, random location, Ohio State would be favored over everyone right now. Those are my top 10 power ratings, and thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure, if you haven't already, to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment your analysis and thoughts down below so I can reciprocate my thoughts with you in the comment section, and check out anything on these end screens that are up here, whether it's a recommended video or playlists for teams that I'm talking about in a preview, prediction, or a reaction. Make sure to hit the notification bell on those, scroll through them, and watch any suggested videos if you are interested. Thank you for helping college football with Sam become the best and the biggest college football brand and channel on YouTube and other social media platforms. We will reach that one day because of your support.